I love Yakuza 0. Absolutely love it. Seriously, if you haven't played a Yakuza game, get this one. It not only has the most refined system in the series, but it's also now on PC. So if you don't want to give Sony money and support this whole anti-consumer exclusive bullshit, even though I have because I bought God of War as soon as it came out essentially. So, you know. I will also be focusing on how it performs on PC because of the history we've had of Japanese games being shit ports. And if you don't believe me that we've had shit ports from Japanese companies, just look at these two examples. Ace Combat Assault Horizon, one of its biggest flaws is it has no mouse support. Now I've played a game similar to Ace Combat known as Strike Suit Zero or Strike Suit Infinity. Has mouse support, works really well, easily implemented. Why can't Namco Bandai do the same? Dark Souls Prepare to Die Edition, that released with an awful port, and a modder had to fix it, and to this day, From Software have not tried to fix it themselves. Instead, they just re-released the entire game as a remaster. Yes, it works fine as a remaster, but that doesn't excuse the fact that they just gave up with it. Yakuza 0 can very easily be played with mouse and keyboard, but if you have a controller, it's recommended, which is understandable, you know, because it was on PS4 a year before PC, to which I just have to say, fuck you, Sony. Fuck you. Anyway, Yakuza 0's story takes a different approach with its storytelling by having two stories happening simultaneously. Kiryu's story is focused on him proving to the Dojima family that he is innocent as well as the Kazuma family head, and that they were framed for the death of, honestly, just a random guy. It's where he died that became an issue for the Dojima family, which is why Kiryu got ousted by them. The second story the game tells is Majima's. His story focuses on his past and how he does whatever is necessary to be allowed back into the Yakuza. This includes doing a hit on a woman called Makoto, but our lovable crazy person before he became the crazy person we all know and love doesn't follow through with it. We see Majima in a different light in Yakuza 0, and I'm perfectly fine with it. Hell, I prefer games to do this more with their prequels to their already established franchises. It adds more character to a character or characters we already love. We find out how Kiryu became the Dragon of Dojima, which is awesome, and the icing on this cake is that both Kiryu and Majima's story are interconnected. I also feel like I should point out that Yakuza 0 plays like a Mafia TV show. Each chapter is basically an episode, and whenever you switch from either characters, when progressing the story, you get a little previously on X character. Yakuza games sure aren't lacking when it comes to gameplay. I'm going to split this up into two different categories: important to the story and not important to the story. I know, creative, right? Let's start off with what's important. The combat is literally brawling, which normally I find boring, but Yakuza 0 makes it really fun. You can throw bicycles at people and have their bones crack, as well as beating someone so hard money literally flies out of them. Seriously, you can't make this shit up. I mean, early in the game, Kiryu helps two drunk people sober up by just fighting them. Either getting into a fight and getting the shit beaten out of you makes you sober, or his hands are literally magic. There are three styles of fighting you can use: fast, mid, or strong. Majima's strong style was how I played the rest of the game as him. It wasn't because it was easier or the fact he had a baseball bat that can be used into a nunchuck ability, which, to be fair, does help. It's because of how satisfying it is to use his heat exhaust abilities, which are basically special moves you can use to deal an insane amount of damage with the most brutal animations around, much like Majima using the baseball bat to break your skull, and also have money fly out of them. Apparently skulls have money. Within these styles of combat, there are also skill trees. Some are universal, such as the health boost, and others are specific to a style, like the heat finishers or enhancing combos you can perform. Now for the stuff that's not important. If you look at the footage, you'll notice the skill tree shows something marked with an M, as well as the locked section. I still haven't unlocked any of those abilities tied to them, reason for it being they literally aren't important whatsoever. They're not unlocked from playing through the story, so they don't have any importance to them. However, from what I can tell, you can unlock these abilities by going to the people either Kiryu or Majima have met that are willing to teach them how to fight. They come to you early on in the game and are marked on the minimap, so it's easy to find them. I just never saw the reason for it, as I didn't exactly have any issues while in combat. Not to say the combat was easy, it's just like I didn't have any issues personally. There's a CP system, which I forgot what it stood for, but it's basically another form of progression for your character, where you can get perks such as more money dropping from fights, telephone cards being easier to find with a special item, less likely to run into a Mr. Shakedown who will rob you of all your money, and the best one below that, less money lost from Mr. Shakedown. Each character have their own business minigame. For Kiryu, it's real estate. For Majima, it's a cabaret girl managing simulator minigame thing, which I'm not going to go into detail about how weird that is, so I'll pass it off as a old Japan kind of thing, seeing as Japan has both maid cafes and cat cafes. So, old Japan. Anyway, both these minigames appear during the main story, but they don't do anything apart from pose a small barrier for you because it's literally in the way of the rest of the story. That's all it is. There's the friendship meter, which is tied to sob stories, and if being honest, I didn't pay too much attention to them, and the most friendship I got for any character was with a little girl who was being bullied by 2 grown men. Let's just have that sink in for a second. 2 grown men, and the only way to make her happy was if I got her a stuffed animal so she'd go home. I did that because Majima has a heart of gold underneath all that angry face and psychotic way of handling situations. And finally, the least important, but also what makes up 80% of any Yakuza game, the rest of the minigames around. I did say there are a list of things that are important and not important to the story specifically, but to say I didn't do some of them is just wrong. So the only ones that are worth your time are the karaoke and underground catfights. Always bet on Jennifer, she barely loses. Seriously, you'll make a bunch of money that way. So yeah, there's a bunch of things you can do in Yakuza. The game is full of content. There's even an achievement for watching softcore Japanese porn, which I'm still questioning if it's porn or not. And this leads us to where there is an issue with Yakuza 0, aside from the lack of naked women obviously. There's too much shit to do, way too much. It's not that big an issue, but it's just annoying at times when you're running through the streets of Kamurocho to get the next objective only to be stopped by someone who wants you to do something stupid like pretend to be a producer so the show can go on. A major problem I have is the fact that combat can be super clunky at times and really annoying when you get shot. Those fucking things are everywhere in the last couple chapters of the game and quite unfair because those things don't just stun you, but also down you, so you're an easy target for the next melee attack. And then as soon as you get up, you get shot again. Like, what the actual fuck is this shit? I'm also very surprised that a game that came out in 2017 and 2018 has QuickTime events. I thought we were past this stage in gaming. It was a craze back in 2007 and remained gaming's biggest bane until loot boxes came by. I'm just trying to figure out why they're even in this game. You can sometimes forgive QuickTime events if they're done right, not too often, which is the case for Yakuza 0, but they come and go so fast it feels like the game's saying, slow the fuck down there, sonny boy. You're beating a boss way too quickly. Now, if you're like me and realize it's going to happen, you play a little slower in anticipation of them to perfectly get them down, because they show through an animation that your character is the better fighter of the two, or at least getting better. I really enjoyed myself with Yakuza 0. It was worth the money, and I do mean the more expensive PS4 version. I missed out on playing it last year because I thought, oof, £45 is asking a bit much, don't you think? No, throw that mindset out the window. Right, so let's talk about the PC port a bit. The game runs really smooth. I do have a PC designed to not flinch when playing Witcher 3, so obviously Yakuza 0 isn't an issue for me. But with the PC specs shown on the screen, I believe this can be run on a PC that costs between £500 and £600 on medium settings, with 60 FPS running. It might even be possible to have it on high graphics settings, but I'm not 100% sure on that. It's best to check online with your specs and the specs of the game to see if your computer will have any issues running it in high, medium, or even low. Anyway, if you haven't picked up Yakuza 0, you really should. It's tons of fun, and you will enjoy the hell out of it if you're into crime thrillers, and this is a crime thriller. Just watch the little 2-minute trailer they put into the game. You know what? I'll just put a link in the description for it.